Hi, friends and family. Welcome back to another one of our discussions on board. We are so happy to have you listening in today as we talk about imposter phenomena. As always, we're starting with a get to know you question for all of our panelists. And the question for today is, what would you do if you were not afraid of failure? I'll go first. Hi, my name is Sia. And my answer to that question would probably be, I think I would put out a lot of the stuff that I've written about. And I wouldn't hesitate as much if I were immune to failure. And I would definitely, tackle the topics that I truly want to, and I wouldn't worry as much about, if I'm, addressing the correct target audience and whatnot. So having said that, I will now pass it off to Ilakkiya.
Hi, I'm Ilakkiya, and if I was not afraid of failure, I would probably run for president or become the head of the Environmental Protection Agency or something, so I can make a big difference in the amount of care and protection we do for the environment, protecting it, reducing climate change, all that jazz. I would make a difference. I'll give it to Krupa.
Yeah, like Sia said, even I would write a lot and not be scared to like publish them or share them with friends. Like even now I write stuff, but it is always with me. I don't like show it to anyone, so I'd probably do that.
Okay, so if I were not afraid of failure, I think I would share more of my vulnerabilities and anxieties with people. So I feel like I have to constantly put on a front of strength and competence. And that really comes from fear of failing or having someone feel sorry for me or worry about me or think less of me. And if I didn't have that fear, then I would definitely talk more openly about my experiences. And I think it would help if we all did that, right? Because everybody does this to some extent, and it becomes an arms race of sorts where nobody can disarm and just be themselves just because everybody else is always maintaining that front.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I was thinking along the lines of things I normally wouldn't do. Like, for instance, fixing an air conditioner or just ripping things apart in physical electronics and just exploring that. I've always wanted to do that. It's just that I function better when I have a buddy who knows his stuff when I'm doing those things. So that's when the fear of failing comes. Like, what if I damage this, or what if I've got to buy a new one? So it's good if I have someone when I'm doing like physical things and opening stuff up and understanding how phones work, things like that. Yeah. So I'm getting slowly overcoming that fear. Yeah.
Okay, I guess that just leaves me. So for me, I would sort of like just like look at myself and see like what scares me, and like sort of see if I have any phobias or anything like that, and then try to do those things. So if there was a bucket list, it's like like trying to do the things that you couldn't do, and like one of the things that I would love to do is sort of go to a country where I don't speak the language, I don't understand the culture, but like still live for like say 3 months, and that would be amazing because you would learn a lot from that. But I also want to see the things that these guys have said like are pretty good. For example, like with Deepak's thing, I do also have fear that sometimes saying something that's happening in my life, like a negative thing with someone who who's like family, who like really likes me. I don't want them to feel stressed because they're not gonna get the whole picture at all times. And similarly with Vyaas, as a CS major, I would love to like sort of like break things and then build it back up. And if like, it's a sort of thing where if I know there's no consequences to it, that would be amazing, and like, I probably would do those things.
Just as an anecdote, I don't know if you remember this, but there was this imaginary blue tiger from Neptune that we were both scared of when we were children.
Does the tiger have a name?
I would go face up to that tiger.
Does it have a name?
It did. We don't remember the name.
Yeah,
Facing
Yeah.
childhood fears. That's awesome.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the topic, which is imposter syndrome. That's a topic that we're tackling today. We're trying to uncover that. And first, before that, we'll first get to know what imposter syndrome is so that everybody's on the same page. Then from there, we'll go on to more interesting discussions. To everybody, I want to ask a question. What is imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome is very simply just doubting your abilities and feeling like a complete fraud. It can affect anyone, but it usually tends to affect people who achieve a lot and then find it difficult to own and internalize their own accomplishments. And then they start questioning whether they really deserve all the credit they're getting and all the accolades. So that to me is imposter syndrome.
I would actually say it probably affects both people who achieve stuff as well as like people who don't. It's just that people who achieve stuff can probably talk about it and then say, I might have achieved this, but I still don't think I've done something big. And of course, like you shouldn't mistake imposter syndrome with people being modest or people showing the humility. Uh, it's bigger than that.
Yeah, and to add on, I believe imposter syndrome was originally studied in high achieving women, and I bring that up because the imposter syndrome is kind of prevalent in uh, minority groups, in any sort of groups that face more difficulties to get where they need to be, and that leads to increased feelings of insecurity, self-doubt about whether they're really skilled enough to get there, and just not attributing any kinds of successes that they might have in their life to their own talent, but rather external factors, and the fear of constantly being found out somehow, that, oh, you don't actually know what you're doing, and that they're living a lie.
So how do you differentiate between a healthy, caution about your competence or your own abilities and imposter phenomena as is experienced, almost to a level of where it inhibits your functioning or inhibits your healthy feelings about yourself? How do you differentiate between those two?
I think I have a cool answer for this. A healthy amount of like self-competence would probably be indicative of where you recognize your accomplishments, you acknowledge that you're the cause of these accomplishments, you can congratulate yourself and feel good about yourself. But you can also recognize the accomplishments of others and their competence and their ability to succeed. And if you're able to recognize both and give credit where credit's due, it's healthy. Um, it's on either extreme when you can't recognize the other. So it would be very self-absorbed and narcissistic, perhaps, to only see one's own competence and think everyone else is like dumb and they don't know what they're doing and they only get things done because of external factors, and only you get your work done because of self-work, and you're the only deserving person. So that would be very self-centered. And then with imposter syndrome, it would be the complete inability to actually give yourself any credit, or recognize your accomplishments. See that other people do things, compare yourself to other people, and think like they're smarter, they know what they're doing, they're accomplished, and it's because of them, versus not being able to attribute any of your successes to yourself. So it's a spectrum. That's my answer.
That's interesting. I was actually looking at it in a different way. Not to say that I disagree with you, but the way I look at it is, most people experience moments of doubt, right? Everybody goes through that. That's normal. The way you can differentiate whether that is imposter syndrome or not is to look at whether you're allowing that doubt to control your actions or not. Like, the goal is not to never feel like an imposter. I think everybody goes through that. The goal is to sort of have the tools and insight and information to talk yourself down when you have those feelings and do it faster. So you can have an imposter moment, but you ideally shouldn't have an imposter life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. And I would actually say one other way is when you listen to stories from people, where people have accomplished it, sometimes if you tend to think that if I was in the same position, I might have not accomplished it. Or when you just like watch like say a TV show and then somebody, there are always characters that are relatable to you, and then you might relate with the person who like messes up things. Oh, I might be that guy, and if that is the case, then that's one way to sort of find out that you might, and I'm saying might because I have no background in these things, but you might have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, bouncing off that, like Deepak said, like a healthy amount of self-doubt is always good. And when you look at imposters, right, like the people who actually don't have any skills, like for that particular task, they're probably not going to feel like an imposter. Like the very fact that they don't have the skills, or they didn't make it based on their own achievements. They were just taking credit for other people's achievements and climbing up the ladder. They probably wouldn't feel like an imposter, because it's just that since childhood they were maybe grown. They grew up in a way where they just thought that, okay, I got to get work done of these guys. I got to get work done of people around me, and that's what credit is. So the actual imposters may not feel the imposter syndrome in some cases. So that's also an interesting angle.
So what Vyaas just talked about is very similar to this concept called Dunning-Kruger syndrome. I suggest everyone looks it up.
We'll put that on the description.
Yeah, there's also this book. I think Deepak's read that book as well. So it's called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. So yeah, we'll have that at the comments as well, description.
It's actually surprising when you said that to me, because I would assume those people with like so-called imposters, they would also like feel the same thing, because like even to them, they have life experiences that tells them that they are an imposter. And like one is like not feeling like you're an imposter, but the other thing is actually living through it, where that people can use your life experiences to tell you that like you mean nothing, or your experiences have tells you these things, or like it was just because of luck that you got here and not because of your competency or anything like that. And so I mean, again, I don't know like what the right thing is, but it just surprised me when you said that.
All right, guys, quick yes or no. How many of you felt like you deserved your college admits?
I feel like I deserved it.
Yeah, go ahead, Krupa.
Yeah, no, for the question, yeah, I think I deserved it. I felt like I didn't get the college I actually deserved. So yeah, that's
Nice.
one place my imposter syndrome didn't work. But yeah.
Mine's more of a 50-50. Yeah.
So
I only applied to universities that I thought I could get in. So I never I always call like the university I went to as my dream university. But then at the same time, I also like know that I didn't really apply to anything like more than that. I always knew that, okay, with this I have a chance. I know why I can get in. I wanted logic for me to like be able to do that. I was never able. I never applied something where let's just do it just for the sake of it. I never did that when I applied. So the imposter syndrome, if I do have one, if I did have it, it probably stopped me even before I applied. So yeah.
And Krupa, you mentioned that I guess your college admissions was one place your imposter syndrome didn't work. So if you have self-diagnosed yourself with feeling like an imposter and having imposter experiences, what's that like for you? And then everyone else, since feeling like an imposter is like it's a combination of certain feelings that everybody experiences. So was there ever a moment you doubted yourself or felt like an imposter? So please share.
Yeah, so I feel it almost every day, I guess, you know. So I'm a psychologist, as you know. So each and every time I am going to meet my client or the session starts, I feel like, Krupa, do you know what are you even doing? Do you even know counseling? What did you do? Why are you doing this? Something thoughts like that come to me, you know. But every time I do, my client appreciates me or tells me it worked for them or something like that. I feel like, whoa, what? I didn't do anything, you know. Even after the accomplishment, even after getting validation for that, sometimes I feel like I haven't done anything. And I'm also teaching a lot of courses. Even in between the course, I'm explaining something, people are understanding, people are, you know, giving positive feedback. I, in between myself, I stop myself and ask, are you in like, do you even know what you're teaching? Is this something you know, or are you like, you know, telling it on the flow? You know, sometimes like I've studied it, like I've studied 5 long years. I know stuff, but still it is so hard to believe that I know these things. Even, you know, in writing, right? I write a lot, and I share it to 1 or 2 people maximum, you know, to keep up, not to procrastinate. So I feel like again the perfectionism that I won't be good at this, or this work is, you know, it is not at all good. So all that, you know, stops me from sharing or, you know, being happy about myself or being proud about myself. Even Vyaas, that day, he was giving me some compliment and I wasn't able to accept it. I was like, no, no, no. So it was like, if someone gives you a compliment, please say thank you and accept it. And it is so hard for me to do. Yeah, I'm working on it.
That happens. So yeah, so it looks like, yeah, she's learning. So I'm happy for her.
All right, so
Yeah,
let's all
thanks for
stop
sharing.
and take a moment to appreciate how great Kripa is and acknowledge how amazing she is at her work and how much we're all learning from her, right?
And thank
Definitely.
you for sharing your experience.
Thank you.
Yes, we love having you here because firstly you know stuff. Plus, you know, as a therapist, you know, when you say things, you know, as a CS guy, with being part of these mental health calls, you know, like when I have the same you know mindset as you, or you know, see things that you agree with, you know, that you know, it sort of like gives me like a mental check. Okay, I think this went well.
Thank you, Akshay. That means a lot.
And you know, you actually make a very good point. Someone as qualified as you, if you feel this way, then clearly many of us must be feeling these things, right? So I just looked it up, and according to the International Journal of Behavioral Science, an estimated 70% of people experience these imposter feelings at some point in their lives. Isn't that a very high number?
And Vyaas shared a YouTube video of a TED Talk where they spoke about imposter syndrome, and they mentioned that number too, with the comment that it's not high enough. 70% seems low because the common feelings associated with imposter syndrome are anxiety, perfectionism, fear of failure, and self-doubt. So those are feelings that I feel like a lot of us experience at various points. And I guess to share my experience of feeling like an imposter, the most clear experience that I have is when I was a teaching assistant for a computer science class. And my major is genetics. I do science, I do lab science. That's the science I do. But I did well in the class. I got an A, and I was given the offer to be a TA, so I did it. And for the 2 semesters that I was doing it, I very much felt like, is someone going to find out that I don't really know enough about CS? Is someone going to know that I only know the material that's covered in this class, and I'm not really skilled in it, like the whole field of CS? And I think part of it comes from the fact that I was told a lot throughout my life, like, you don't really know how to code, you don't know how to do CS, you haven't done a lot of things. And my first experience really learning it was in college. I took the class once and then I became a teaching assistant for it. So with such limited knowledge and experience, I felt like someone's going to find out, like, why is this genetics student teaching a CS class? So that was my moment, I would say. That's like, I didn't really feel like I was smart enough to be there, but I was.
Ilakkiya, that is super relatable. And I can tell you, I have a master's degree in CS and I still feel the same way.
Good to know.
I would like to sort of like add on to that, which is like sort of like uh, being able to say, hey, I have imposter syndrome or I have anxiety, I have depression, and all those things, the people who have probably learned about it also don't want to use those words very lightly. And because of that, sometimes even if you do have them, you're sort of scared to use those words because they're very strong words, and it means a lot to people. And I don't want to, I not I as an I, but like people generally don't want to normalize it in the way that like it's nothing. At the same time, it is like sort of like sometimes pervasive that we do want to talk about it, but we don't want to make light out of it. And sometimes because of that, I think people, it's not that they're in denial of having anxiety or having imposter syndrome or any of those things, but rather it's that the, their life might be going bad due to these things, but they don't want to. They think that like maybe it's because they're bad that they're having these experiences, and not because of some logical reason as to why it's happening. It's because of the incompetency. And I saw it because more when I knew that this was the topic we were going to talk about, I read like a bunch of YouTube comments to sort of like get the feel of it, and that was something that I saw. Not that they said it, but like I could clearly see that that was something that they had reservations about, and I've seen those things as well. Like for me, I've always thought that I shouldn't use these words lightly because whenever I learn all these new words, but I don't know if I'm always sort of like taking a step back to see if like I'm at any time am I feeling those things. And sometimes I do take a step back, but of course I do know that not uh, sh- knowing that I shouldn't use this lightly sometimes does can affect you. So yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting the way that you said that. About how these words and labels can be very powerful. Can everyone hear me all right, by the way?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you. So I remember reading that the person who coined the term imposter phenomena was encouraging people to not say imposter syndrome. And on the surface level, it might not seem like that big of a difference. But they, even in their literature, Dr. Clance only uses imposter phenomena because they didn't want imposter syndrome to be another thing that people realize that they have and then feel bad about, like it's something that can't be fixed, or they have these like secondary emotions to already feeling bad about something that's important to them. And I think that's the hesitation that a lot of people have in talking about imposter phenomena specifically, because you're talking about it in conjunction with places where you're supposed to be successful, right? So it might be, for a lot of people, it might be at school. A lot is riding on you doing well at school, or in the corporate world, or if you have a high stress job, that might be in direct contradiction with the image that you're supposed to project of yourself, which is that of competence and that you can handle things. And yes, like anyone would feel weird about themselves if they thought, oh wow, I can't even handle success. Wow, I'm here and I can't even, I can't even have alignment within that. So it's really important how we frame the conversation about it. So thank you, Akshay, for bringing up the whole point about the words that we use surrounding this discussion. So yeah, that's what I had to add.
Okay, so we're going to call it imposter phenomenon for the rest of the video, right?
Sounds good.
All right, so I was thinking, based on what Sia said, there are several factors that make us feel like imposters, right? Some of them are intrinsic and some are extrinsic. Like one she mentioned was the example of being in school. So the environment matters. If you have institutionalized discrimination against you, that sometimes makes you feel like an imposter. Like if you belong to a community that's historically excluded in a particular space, and then you manage to get there, you still feel like you don't belong there. And that sense of belonging is something you need in order to feel confident. The more people who look like you or sound like you, the more confident you feel, which is why people always talk about representation. And the fewer people who look or sound like you, for many people, it does impact their confidence. I'm not saying this is universal, but for a lot of people, it does. There's a saying that what you cannot see, you cannot be. And this is especially true if you're part of a group about whom there are stereotypes about competence. So, like if you're a racial or ethnic minority, or women in certain fields, or something that I think most of us can relate, if you're being international students at American universities. So, what do you think?
Yeah. So yeah, international students at just foreign universities, like you're just going to a foreign country and in a place you don't know. Yeah, I think that feeling is like almost universal. Like if you go to a different state or a place where you don't know the language, like even within India, like you do feel like you have your own groups and you have your own cliques where you understand the references, jokes, and things that people talk about. So that can make you that can give you those feelings of self doubt, and seeing is believing and seeing is doing. So yeah, that's a very powerful point. And I like to share one of my experiences following up on the previous question. So the one place where I had this really funny story where I was doing my internship at a company, and so my job was to look at uh, how pig heart tissue was a good replacement for human tissue. So using it as I was doing R&D for a company, and so I had to heat up a reagent. So when it comes to labs, right? So when you want to heat up a reagent, you put it like in a water bath, where heat water to a certain degree and you place it in there. So I went, they have that whole lab set up in the company, and there were a lot of instruments over there. And my boss told me, you can just go heat it up, use one of those. I even forget the term now. So he said just heat it up using the heater. He didn't describe what it looked like. So there were too many instruments in that lab. So I had to guess which was the instrument I used to heat it up. So there was this little let's say about 30 centimeter by 20 centimeter, like a box. So I opened it and there were like little holes in it. So I thought I had to place the reagent and then pour water inside it and then heat it up. So the thing is, I didn't see any temperature setting. So I thought, okay, maybe this works differently. Like I don't have to control the temperature. And turns out it's a sonicator. So which essentially means it releases sound waves to so that wasn't the heater. It was a completely different instrument, and I was freaked out because I thought I couldn't get the water out of it. So there was no outlet to get the water out, so I had to completely flip it. And I was so scared because the heater was right next to it and I didn't use it in the right manner. So I didn't feel like asking someone because I didn't want to know that I didn't want to know that I didn't want people to know that I didn't know. Like, it was such a stupid question, like how do I heat this up? So things like that, make you feel like, okay, if there was like an Indian in that company, I would have went up and talked to him. So there's less of that barrier if there's someone who looks like me. So there was no one in my team that looked like me. So that's where it helps. I mean, obviously I could have asked my boss. He was super friendly, but I'm just saying, like, no matter how super friendly people are, it's just an internal thing that you have to slowly process. Hope I didn't bore you guys.
No, you actually said something very interesting, and I'm actually going slightly away from Deepak's question. But have you heard these teachers who said you probably should have learned this earlier itself, in an earlier grade or earlier standard? That makes no sense to me, because if I'm confused about it now, isn't it your job to explain to me? Because if it's confusing me now after seeing what you have done in your subject, you should be able to answer those questions because it is your subject or your course. So when teachers give me that as an excuse, that never makes any sense to me. And I also like don't even know why they want to do it. In one way I can try to reason it is, they want us to learn by ourselves. But I've also seen it being done multiple times. So if it's only done once, I do understand where they're trying to see how, see if it works, that method. And with some people, I do understand why that would work, because if they're interested in the subject, they just don't know something, then it would definitely work, but they would look into those things. But even to people who are not interested in it, but they want to start getting interested, they still use the same thing. And I think sometimes it has a negative effect, and that kind of tells them, hey, you're an imposter and I'm calling you out. And I think that's like a pretty bad thing that I see is still happening.
So Akshay, you still have leftover feelings from last week's session on school abuse, but you actually make a good point. Sometimes it's these childhood memories, such as feeling your grades were never good enough for your parents, or that your siblings outshone you in certain areas, that can leave a lasting impact. Or if a teacher says you're not good enough, which actually did happen to a lot of my friends. So people internalize these ideas, and then they start thinking, in order to be loved or to be lovable, I need to achieve. And that becomes a self-perpetuating cycle. And then, of course, some people also already are anxious or neurotic because that's how their personality is. Then there can be family or behavioral issues that can make them even more likely to face these imposter situations. But definitely, schools and teachers have a big role to play in this.
And along that, so there's a way that one of the psychologists that Sia mentioned earlier, Plants, he created, I'm not sure, a imposter phenomenon scale that people could take and ask a bunch of questions about experiences that people have and quantifies results to share what level of imposter phenomenon characteristics or experiences different people might have. So everyone on this call has just taken this survey, and we're going to discuss all of our different results on what scores we got. So some background on what the scores mean. So if you get a total score of less than 40, it means you have few imposter phenomenon characteristics. If you have a score between 41 to 60, you have moderate imposter phenomenon experiences. 61 to 80 is frequent imposter phenomenon experiences, and 80 and above is intense imposter phenomenon experiences. So we're all going to be brave here and share our experiences, because I feel like part of being an imposter is that you try to, or experiencing it is you're trying to hide your incompetency. So here we're going to try and talk about it and see what that does
And
for us.
Ilakkiya is going to go first.
Of course, yeah. So my score was 56, which puts me in the moderate imposter phenomena experiences. And I think part of the reason for me, at least, is that when I feel like I don't know something and someone tries to attribute that to me of like, oh, you know what you're doing, I tend to immediately shut that idea down. Like I tell them, I don't hide it. I say, no, I don't think I know it, or here's why. And like, I don't hide what I consider to be my incompetencies or my fallacies or anything. So I think that helps me feel like I'm more authentically putting out how much I know or what I do know. Maybe it's too aggressive in terms of doubting what I know, but I feel like since I'm telling people that I don't think I know it, it helps me feel less like I'm an imposter in any given situation, because I'm putting myself out there, like good things and what I don't know as well.
Wait, I got a follow up. So along with your score, also tell like whether you had answers ranging between 1 and 5. So 1 meaning rarely and 5 meaning often. So Ilakkiya, what were your answers like? Was there a range, or was it restricted?
I put a 5 in only one place, and I put a 1
Okay.
in only one place. I had more.
Okay.
I had mostly 2s and like
okay, mostly
a
2s.
handful of 3s. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
I mean, the reason I was surprised was because I tallied up my scores and it was a 56 as well. And
oh.
I had a couple of 1s. Yeah, my answers were all over the board: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 5, and then a couple of 1s, and then everything in between.
How do you feel that what
yeah,
are?
yeah. I mean, I feel like it matches, But the thing is, so there's different tasks at which you feel like an imposter. Like I said, so when you ask me to fix something like in the house, Like I would always be the last one to be in line. So it's always my dad who does it, and then my brother who probably takes a shot, who's younger than me. So I'm the last guy who's interested in doing physical things in the past. But when I have to like research something, let's say you've got the COVID pandemic going on now, and let's say I've got to like make a video on debunking conspiracy theories and like debunking, all these WhatsApp forwards and messages, I would be fairly confident of making good content that people can actually. So there are tasks at which you feel like an imposter. So this survey doesn't really reflect. I mean, they have that often, rarely, sometimes idea, but this is just like a first step into understanding who you are. So it was really enjoyable to do this, and I'm curious to hear about others' experiences.
So you're saying you're good at making people feel like they're wrong. That's a useful skill to have.
Yeah. No. But the thing is, you've got to be tactful when you do that. Like you don't hurt their ego by doing that. So
Right, yeah,
you can't directly say you're wrong, right? Because that's not going to work, right? So
you need
you've
to
got to
give them an
combine
off ramp
humor.
so that they can preserve their ego.
Yeah. You come out with a left hook that they don't see coming when it comes to debunking theories. So yeah, I'm good at that. I've tried that with my friends, change their positions on political stances and things like that. So yeah, that would come in handy in debunking like
we should
really
talk
bad
more
theories.
about that sometime. I want to hear what Kripa's score was, so I want her to go next.
Yeah, my score was 68. Yeah, so I feel like most of my imposter phenomena comes from this feeling of that I should be perfect, that being perfectionist, that is where it comes from. So like I shared in previous videos, if I'm not good at something immediately, I tend to give up on it, something like that. So I feel like that's where this thing emerged from. I think it is moderate, frequent.
Yeah.
Frequent.
So you feel like yours comes from perfectionism, and you feel like you need to be really good at something.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Any reasons why you think you've developed that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can go next. So I was at a 62, which is a drastic improvement from when I took it the last time, which was 2 years ago, and I was at pretty close to a 75. So for me, this is huge, and I really want to share this because I want to make it very, very, clear that it's something that you can work on. You know what I mean? It's not a condemnation. It's not a diagnosis. This is just for you to like place yourself and then work towards something different. So the first time I held a job on campus, I remember that I got a task and I was so unable to overcome my feeling of, wait, I'm an international student. I can't believe I have this like high profile job. I can't get this thing done. And it was with like a student office that was like pretty well regarded on campus. I couldn't even talk to people about what the job was for a very long time. I remember getting that assignment and I got so shut down by the pressure that I just couldn't do it. I could not bring myself to do it because it was my first assignment in this big job. I couldn't do it. And then I remember talking to my mentor and she was like, sounds like you have imposter feelings. And I was like, you calling me an imposter? That's not helping. That's really not helping. I'm trying to do my best here. Why are you calling me an imposter? And then, she walked me through it. So I'm very thankful to this person and, the light that, they showed me in that sense, because it was so validating to realize that this is something that a lot of people feel and that I wasn't alone in that weird thought of like, how did I end up here? Everything that has happened has been wild luck, and anything that goes wrong is completely my fault. That has nothing to do with luck, So in the past, I also wanted to share, like in the past 2 years, how I've kind of countered that is very purposefully doing things that are not perfect and things that I'm not good at. So almost taking like at least one thing a month and you just do it and you don't think about it and you don't try to show up as your best self. You just show up. And also, really looking at my relationship with myself, like, do I need to have a solid sense of self? Do I need to go through life thinking that I'm good at something? Or will that stop me from receiving information and being okay with it? So, a lot of times imposter phenomena, if I see that I'm not good at a project, that's when it'll come up. And I can just say, oh, I'm not good at this project. That means nothing for my sense of self. My solid sense of self can change. I can be a good worker, a bad worker. I can be a good student, a bad student. It doesn't matter. It's not based on that. So those are just some things that have helped. So anyway, if you do this test and you get like a wild score, let's hope if I can do it, you can do.
Applause for her.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right. So I also wanted to engage with some of the things that you brought up in terms of how you work to overcome your imposter feelings, right? And the first thing you did was acknowledge how you felt. You put your thoughts in perspective. You observed that thought as opposed to engaging it. And in that way, you were able to critically question those thoughts and think about whether they were able to, they were helping you or hindering you, right? You were reframing your thoughts. That is something that I think everybody should do. That really, really helps. And it also helps to sort of remember the only difference between someone who experiences these feelings and someone who doesn't is, you know, it's not in how it's mostly not with intelligence or competence or capability. It just means that we perceive those situations in a different way, and we have to learn to think like those non-imposters, let's call them that, right? So it comes down to like valuing constructive criticism, and like Vyaas said, asking your team for help, understanding that if you don't ask for help, you're kind of slowing your team down, and remembering that the more you practice, the better you get at things. So any new skill that you're trying to build, you're probably going to be bad at it to begin with. So a lot of these imposter feelings have to do with that, and recognizing these things and accepting that that's normal. And Sia also spoke about how she couldn't even talk to people about what her job was, but really sharing what you're feeling with people you trust, your mentors, that really helps, because they can reassure you and tell you, hey, what you're feeling is normal. Others have been in your place, and that can actually make it seem less scary to you. And if you want to delve even more deeply into those feelings, then you go to people like Krupa. Okay, Akshay, you share your score.
I was going to ask you to share yours, Deepak, wise wordsmith over there.
Yeah, Deepak, you're going to go next. Sorry.
The people have spoken.
I'll share it last. I'll share it last because I have a question to go with that.
Okay, fine. So I can go next to the mine's actually 62 as well. And I think a big role that played was like I just had a great like last 24 hours have been like pretty nice, and like I'm sort of like feeling good, and you know, I think you know, because we had to answer them you know, without questioning yourself much. A lot of those things I don't know, you know, like what, because I think it would be better if somebody knows you and like, would be able to answer it. But like, of course, you know, you probably don't like share everything enough to for them to give them for them to be able to do this. But so for me, honestly, I think my score also comes from just the fact that had a great day yesterday, and that definitely played a role, and had a bunch of threes. I never really like put a one. I'm surprised like you guys like did put it, because I felt like, you know, all of those were life experiences that I can totally see anyone go through. So I was really surprised when I heard that, you know, like people did put one. But I also didn't have a lot of fives. Might have had like 1 5 or something, but like not much. But yeah, so that was my experience. Deepak?
All right, Akshay. So I know what your last 24 hours thing was about, and I have to assure you, you completely deserved it, and you deserve the best of it. I would have wished you had gotten it even earlier, but you had the patience and perseverance to wait until yesterday. So I'm really, really happy for you. So I'll get to my score. My score was 50. And I was all over the map. I had ones, I had fives. I don't know what that says about my character, but that actually does bring me to my next question. I read this article that talks about different types of imposters. So I'm going to read a quick definition of each type, and I want each of you to identify which type you think you most relate to. All right?
Actually, before we go in, just say the name, and then we can try to define what it is through our experiences. I think that would be fun.
All right, I'll tell you what the names are. The first one is perfectionist. The second is expert. The third is natural genius. The fourth is soloist. The fifth is supermen/superwomen. I should probably read the definitions, huh?
Yeah, go for that. Yep, thank you. Yep, appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. So perfectionists set extremely high expectations for themselves. And even if they meet 99% of their goals, they're going to feel like failures. Any small mistake will make them question their own competence. Now, does anyone want to raise their hand and admit to being a perfectionist? All right. So I'll go to the next one then. That's the expert. Experts feel the need to know every piece of information before they start a project and constantly look for new certifications or trainings to improve their skills. They won't apply to a job if they don't meet all the criteria in the posting, and they might be hesitant to ask a question in class or speak up in a meeting at work because they're afraid of looking stupid if they don't already know the answer. So, who wants to raise your hand for that? Sia? All right, Ilakkiya too. Okay. Vyaas,
I can definitely say I was that, but I think I've gotten way better at it. And like now I ask like a lot of these questions, and because I've sort of like gone through the transition from like the place where I couldn't to the place now I do. I think
Right.
yeah, that's probably why like mine's 62. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, I relate to like
Well done.
many parts of that one.
What's that?
I relate to many parts of it, maybe not all of the definition, but most of it like hit a mark, I think.
Okay, which parts do you relate to?
Wanting to know all the information before starting a thing and fear of asking questions for the fear of like looking stupid and not already knowing the answer. But
That's an odd thing to confess to in a show where we all come mostly unprepared and just ask questions. All right. Glad you're being honest though. So the next category is natural genius. So when the natural genius has to struggle or work hard to accomplish something, he or she thinks this means they're not good enough. They're used to skills coming easily, and when they have to put in effort, their brain tells them that's proof that they're imposters. Anyone?
I don't relate with it, but I do want to say, has anyone here like told someone to? Of course, you'd be able to do it, or sort of put pressure on some people because you think that they are very talented and they would be able to do it. Because I have done that, and
Yeah,
I
I
also
do
know
that
that like
too.
why that was the wrong thing to do.
yeah, I've done that to people.
I
Okay,
do that constantly to my friends.
Wow.
But I don't think so. It is wrong in a way because we can recognize their talent, and sometimes it is okay to tell them or to give them some kind of motivation to do that.
Okay. I
I meant to
100% relate to
say,
this category, by the way. I've always thought if I have to work hard for something, then that means that I'm probably being an imposter here, which is actually the wrong way to think. Because if you really want to build skills, you should be willing to do the hard work to learn. It's just that when I went to school, I started out feeling everything was really easy. And so when I got to the higher grades and had to actually do my homework and work hard for things, uh, I feel like I didn't learn quite as much of the discipline that was required because I was used to getting things easy. Akshay, you had a point.
Deepak's, yeah.
okay, I just wanted to like say want to go a bit more in detail for this thing, which is I'm not saying it's sort of like bad to like sort of like like tell them, hey, like you're good at this or anything like that, but rather when they don't get something right or something, sometimes we don't give them credit because we think, of course, they will be able to do it. And at those times, I've done the mistake of not either not giving them enough credit, or like when they don't do something that I expected them to do, I sort of like not wanting they did, but like sort of like my words, they probably could have seen it as putting them at fault for that.
Yeah, I think I misunderstood what you told earlier.
What did you misunderstand?
Yeah.
I thought
How so?
he was talking about, putting pressure to your friend about doing something that they're good at, that they're good at. I didn't get the part where not appreciating or not giving them credit.
I see.
Yeah,
Vyaas, what do you want to say?
Yeah, this was, I completely lost my train of thought in the middle. So I was going to ask you, my follow-up question on with you was, so you mentioned earlier, you remember the call where you said you were Batman? So my question to you, when you shared your experience, was Batman suffered from imposter syndrome, right? So in his movies, he talks about how he doesn't feel he's worthy enough of, the things he does, or he's not good enough. I don't know much about it. So is that true, or what's that? Does he actually talk about it in the movies and the comics and things like that?
I'm actually not very familiar with that. So
okay.
I'm going to have to admit I'm an imposter Batman.
Batman, okay. That adds up.
Yeah. Ilakkiya, you had something to say?
Yeah, I guess it was along the lines of why, like the natural genius thing. I remember reading an article from Sal Khan. He's the guy who created Khan Academy, of how when you praise kids just so naturally and so frequently of like, you're smart, you're a genius, it leads to later feelings. It could lead to later issues with self-confidence when things stop coming as naturally, and you do need to start working for things. And I guess that's where the problem is, right? When you start focusing solely on the outcomes, less on the effort that people put into things. And if you naturally keep assuring them that things will be as easy as it is right now, then when things start to become hard, it's you crumble in on yourself. And also that I kind of relate to this one, but instead of feeling like an imposter, I just think I'm not smart. Like math and physics, I struggle so much in those classes. So there, I just feel like I'm not smart there. But yeah.
Right, I can really relate to the first part of what you said. It's not, I mean, what Sal Khan said as well. So you probably shouldn't appreciate children quite as much for things that they just happen to be good at, but appreciate them more for the things that they put effort into, because that teaches them that they can become better at things, and that not everything is innate, and they can train themselves to be better. I'll get to the next category anyway. I think some of you will relate to this. The next category is soloists. They feel they have to accomplish tasks on their own, and if they need to ask for help, they think that means they're a failure or a fraud. Vyaas, you have something to say?
Well, I just did. The experience I shared like 10 minutes ago is the perfect example of that. So yeah, that's changed now that I'm working here in India. It's easier for me to look stupid in front of my own people. So yeah, that's changing. So it's going to get better from over time.
Go representation.
Akshay, you had something to say? Akshay,
I just want to say go representation.
Yeah, go representation. So my friend Sudarshan and I had this thing in college where we used to call it LDSS, let's do something stupid, because we wanted to go out there and try to do things where so as to overcome our own fear of looking foolish or looking stupid or fear of rejection of any kind, right? So we went and put ourselves out there and did all kinds of stupid things, and those make up some of my best college memories throughout.
I think I've done a similar thing with like in 11th grade and 12th grade, I used to play like truth or dare like a lot, and we used to do a lot of these stupid things, and by doing that gave me a lot of confidence, to be okay with doing a lot of these stupid things. And I think I guess everyone has that story where like they went from what, it's okay to do these things. It's okay even if it's a stupid thing, and they get that confidence to be foolish even in public. And
Yes, let's
if
all do stupid things.
if somebody who's like watching it hasn't done anything stupid yet, maybe now, like, due to quarantine times, now might be the time to like have a lot of time to think of these ideas to do it.
Exactly. Ilakkiya, you had something to say. Have you done something stupid?
Nah, no. But yeah, I can't really recall anything stupid that I've done off the top of my head.
Also, I do want to say, like, when I say stupid, I meant like sort of like an activity, like making a fool of yourself, not stupid as in like buying something crazy, because like that sort of thing. Okay, you can go through the experience, but like that's not what I'm talking about. I
Yeah,
just wanted
also
to
don't do
make the
drugs,
classification.
don't break the law, don't go that stupid.
Yeah.
And speaking of stupid and doing things that get you out of the comfort zone, we had this idea to do a dance, right? Since we hit 100 subscribers. So yeah, we have to. Sorry, Deepak, you're trying to say something?
We absolutely have to do a dance.
Yeah, we absolutely have to do it. So now might be a good time where we all make a promise that we're gonna do it on camera.
Yes.
So that we follow through on that. Yeah. So yeah, we will have that video coming out soon as well.
That's another reason for subscribers to stay tuned.
I'll commit to this dance. Yes, here's my virtual on the internet commitment. It doesn't go off the internet.
Hey, everybody else has to make the commitment too.
Yeah, I'll do it too. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's doing it.
Sia?
I'm in.
All right. Krupa?
Yeah, me too.
All right, fantastic. So all of us are in. So I'll go to the last category of imposter feeling. That's the supermen and superwomen. So they push themselves to work harder than those around them to prove that they're not imposters. They feel the need to succeed in all aspects of life, at work, as parents, as partners, and they may feel stressed when they're not accomplishing anything. Any of you relate to this? Okay, Sia and Akshay.
I would say sort of at times we have those things where I feel good about like if I'm doing great at one thing, but like the other thing I'm not really like I'm not really doing well. So if you ask me if I have the imposter syndrome, during those times, are you feeling down? Are you do you think greatly of yourself, your self-worth, and all those questions? Sometimes I don't know how to answer it because sometimes I would say yes because I'm doing really well at this one thing. At the same time, I would say no, like I'm not having a great time right now because of this one thing that's going really bad. So I would definitely raise my hand for this one.
Sia, you had something to say as well?
Oh no, just that, sometimes I feel like the lines between just wanting to get stuff right in life, which, as I grow older, I'm realizing is not really what life is about at all. It's not about getting any of it right. There's no one way to get it right. But sometimes I feel the lines are blurry between, me just wanting to like do stuff correctly and just, wanting to be superwoman all the time. So yeah, definitely working on that, but I've given it up. And the way I gave it up was I just started asking people in my life if they loved me. This sounds ridiculous, but hear me out, okay? If you feel like you're failing at something and you catch yourself in like that moment of, am I still worthy of love? Do people still like me? Do they still want to be in my life? Or anything else, even if your goal is it still okay for me to keep going? Just ask people in your life. So I started it with my mom first, then I moved on to my friends, and I was like, hey, so if I failed at this, would you still love me? And they'd be like, yes, of course we would. What does that even mean? And I was like, oh, okay, good to know. I didn't have that information before. So yeah, that's another way to do it, which is also my closing part, is that you're not alone in your imposter phenomena. Just, recruit the help of the people around you and trust yourself that, even if you fail at some things, that's not who you are. That's just what happened. You are whatever you want to be. So, that can change whenever you want it to. So I'll pass it off to, I think, Krupa for closing thoughts.
Yeah, so I was thinking, no, even if you look at these researchers and people, you can see most of us are going through this imposter phenomena, and very less are talking about it. So it might be someone might be looking up to you, knowing that you are going through that same thing would help them greatly. So if someone is watching this, if you are feeling like this, please talk about it. It's okay. When I initially got to know about imposter syndrome, and I got to know that it affects people who are highly achieving and not able to believe it, I thought, am I even worthy to have imposter syndrome? Because I'm not doing anything, Gigi. That all that happens. So people talking about it, normalize talking about these feelings will help a lot of people. And also, it is important for you to know that you are going through that, and your feelings and your thoughts are because of this particular imposter phenomena. So while you're having these thoughts, you can like challenge your thoughts. You can ask yourself, what is the evidence for this thoughts, or what is the evidence against this thought? And sometimes, it might be coming from past experience. So you can ask, is this whole thing an exaggeration of a truth? All these questions we use in CBT. So sometimes it might come also from a core belief, like, I am unlovable if I'm not, if I don't succeed, something like that. So you can also work on your core belief and also collect these evidences. So sometimes we do good, we achieve a lot. Collect these validation, like Sia told, you can ask people around you in your life, ask them, do you think I'm doing good in life, or do you think whatever I'm doing is worthy, or do you love me, all that. And maybe like feedbacks, whatever is your language of love. If you like written feedbacks, ask the people you interact with for written feedbacks, or call them, talk to them. All that, collecting evidence and looking back to it will actually help you while you're fighting these thoughts. But it is also necessary, it is very important that you know that these thoughts are coming from this imposter phenomena, and it's not a general belief, or a general sense of failures. It will really help a lot, because I know me before I understood this term, me, and after I understood this term, it has changed the way I cope with it, in a very big level. But I still go through this. I still feel, like I'm a fraud, like I didn't achieve, or I didn't deserve that whatever I've achieved, or people are simply paying me to speak sometimes, and I don't even deserve all that. That feeling is still there, but the way I cope with it has changed because I understood this phenomena. So I hope you guys also look into it and understand why your thoughts and why you feel this way. Yeah, that's my closing thought. Thank you.
I do want to add one thing to your closing thought, which is sometimes people like because the culture they grow in, like they grew up in and everything, they may not just be able to say the words like "I love you" and things like that, and that doesn't mean that they don't love you. But they would use words like "Hey, your family," of course, and those sort of things. And they do come from a good place. Just because they don't say the words that you want to hear doesn't mean they do not love you. And I just wanted to say that, but you guys can continue your closing thoughts.
Very important point you made there, actually. And also, Kripa, you literally took a lot of my thoughts and you made it sound even better. But so I'm just gonna emphasize the last bit of, if you are able to start identifying which thoughts are negative and harmful to your sense of accomplishment and worthiness, then try and see if you can maybe isolate that to a person, create a character in your head that's like, this person X says this. And once you can start to isolate those thoughts from your more less harmful thoughts, then you can start to address them, push them down as much as possible. Like you said, you can't really, it might be hard to completely get rid of imposter phenomenon, but it can definitely be improved upon. So good luck. You're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any technical points to share. So like anything to tie it up. So I have a story. So I love listening to stories from my granddad. So let's go back 40 years. It's a small town in Karnataka, and he's a bank manager, right? So he's a bank officer. So he hadn't become a manager yet. So I love listening to his stories. And there was this one story where he talks about how he's working with the branch manager. So he's an officer and he's the head of the department. And so he said, he called my granddad's name is Balakrishna. Balakrishna, come on in. Let's go to the office. So he was dropping him off at another place. So my granddad thought to himself, I'm not worthy enough to sit next to him in the passenger seat. So the boss was in the driver's seat, and he didn't think he was worthy enough to sit in the passenger seat. So what he did was he went to the seats behind the passenger seat. Like he went right behind him and sat. But that's actually not etiquette. Like when there's two people in a car, you don't sit behind, because that's just like you're a chauffeur, right? So that was just a really interesting example where he called about it and that's not etiquette. So you better sit in front. So there's nothing serious about it. It's just that you learn things by making mistakes. So or doing things your own way and then figuring it out. So and then he learned from that day on that when there's two people in a car, you got to sit in front and not make the other person feel like a chauffeur. Yeah. So great conversation today.
All right. So, Sia, I love you. Krupa, you're definitely worthy of feeling imposter syndrome. Akshay, your family. Ilakkiya, you give me imposter syndrome. And Vyaas, your grandfather sounds like a top guy. I hope he went on to find a lot of confidence and lived a very happy life in the next 40 years. And to the audience, I would say, hey, we all feel imposter syndrome when you guys don't give us enough. When you guys give us so much love and views and likes and shares and comments. But that's okay. We'll deal with it. Just keep doing the same things. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. For more discussions, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Also, make sure to like and comment more topics that you'd like to see us discuss. We'll see you next time.